Welcome to Clientology, the art and science of client getting. In this podcast, we're going to discuss how you can attract, convert, and deliver. So, attract is how do you attract your dream clients while simultaneously repelling nightmare clients? And convert, we're converting those perfect prospects into dream clients. And lastly, under deliver, we're going to focus on topics around how do we deliver wow experiences. The theme throughout is how do we become more referable? How do we build referral programs and deliberately have systems that work to bring us a steady stream of perfect prospects and dream clients? Welcome to the show. Our guests are all experts in their field and they've agreed to share their insights with my audience. I hope you enjoy and I look forward to your comments and feedback. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited today. I have a fellow bibliophile, I think that's the word for us. I'd like to introduce Melody Owen. Her full bio is in the show notes. Melody, welcome to the show. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me today. Super excited. So I'm the founder of Author Nation. I love stories. I've always loved stories. I love telling stories. Most of them are true. And so I've kind of taken that love of stories and I've turned it into a lifetime, legacy of what I do. So I guide authors. Some of the authors who I work with are first-time authors. Some are on their third or fourth book. And I it's all for nonfiction because people think of nonfiction as fact. I'm reading a book, it's got to be fact. But no, we are connected to story. That's like story is so deep in us. We learn through story, we remember things through story. Story shows us how to integrate things into our lives. And so for me, helping nonfiction authors, first time, fifth time nonfiction authors write their books and integrate story into it, for me, that's just I love that. That's so passionate about that.
I love it. And remind me, I've got a couple of introductions for you. I think there's some people that need to meet you. If you haven't met Stephanie Paul, she is the author of a book called Unlock the Magic of Story.
Yeah, I
And
love it.
I'll make sure you
Oh,
two connect because I think there's some fun there. But
thank
um,
you.
now, why authorship? Like, what about that? You know,
Yeah.
what led to this path in your life? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so that's such a great question. So I also tell stories and I'm a story coach. So I've also helped coach people on stage, telling stories on stage, and I tell stories on stage. I did a one woman show, 60-minute one woman show on my own life, my own story. And so why books? It's not just books, but I love books, right? Books, when you're growing up and you need an escape, books, every kid out there is going to recognize this, right? Growing up, you need to run away, you need to escape, and you can't get out. What do? You fall into a book. You live in the world of the book and you allow that to take you somewhere else. And so you're not in the reality that you don't want to be in for whatever reason, right? So books are just these magical transporters and I can go anywhere with them, right? um, and so I've always loved books. Books have been integral to my life. Yeah.
I love it. And, I see my two boys, they're 9 and 13, and I see them being shaped by books. And, obviously they're shaped by books that we loved as kids, but they're also, exploring their own. And, it's amazing because sometimes that escape through the books. My eldest realized, he loves anything Michael Crichton. He loves the Jurassic Park series,
Yeah.
and he's realized he wants to be a paleontologist. And it is fascinating for me as a parent to watch him. He knows the difference between the fictional world of Jurassic Park versus the real world of paleontology. It's really cool watching him, bridge those two worlds. So
That's neat. I read to my kids until they wouldn't let me anymore.
been there, done that. Yep.
Yes.
I have an edition of Goodnight Moon that I keep trying to pull out, and
Exactly. Exactly.
classics. Well, let's get into the whole realm of authorship. So you
Mhm.
founded Author Nation. Do you want to talk about that first, or would you like to talk about the misconceptions that you're seeing where people say, oh, I'd love to write a book, but.
Yeah, well, we can talk about author nation. Really, what it is, you have this idea and you think, can I turn this into a book? And the answer is yes, I can. But there are, obstacles in the way. And so Author Nation has this path to publishing. You come in with an idea and we walk you through planning, producing, publishing, and promoting your book so that you're not struggling through that process. You're actually, I want people to enjoy the process and be in community doing it. So that, in the end, that's what Author Nation does through writing. We do writing sessions and mastermind calls and author journals and resources. So through all of those things, we really lead people from fabulous idea to successful published author.
I love it. I love it. So when somebody's coming to you, what are the common misconceptions you hear, and we were talking before we went live about, that early middle school English teacher critic who, well-meaning, may have left a mark on us. So tell me your thoughts on that side of things.
Yeah. Well, first off, I think we learn a lot of misconceptions about writing in school. I mean, I think they teach writing incorrectly in school, right? I know that's a big statement, but it's what I truly believe. So, we have English teachers who are looking at accuracy rather than ideas and creativity, right? We're sat down and we're told, okay, we have 90 minutes and you're going to write an essay and you're going to hand it in and you're going to be marked on ideas and grammar and word choice, and that's not how it works. I have people who come into my community who you write 5 sentences and then spend an hour editing those 5 sentences. I'm like, let go of that awful English teacher you had, because what writing is about, writing is happening in stages. So the first stage is just get your ideas down, just fill in those pages. I had a meeting with a client today, and she's reworking the same sections over and over and over of this book as a first draft, and she has sections she hasn't touched because she's not done the first sections first. I said, no. This month in August, you are not touching anything that has words in it. The only thing you're allowed to write this month are sections that don't have words in it. That's it. And then by the end of August, you'll have a first draft done, and then you can move on and do the other. So, we teach our kids they're supposed to write each sentence perfectly and accurately the first time. That is not true. I don't know a single professional writer who does that. So that's one misconception, right? That you're supposed to be perfect the first time. Yeah. Or that you can't write because some, English teacher who was miserable in their own lives tried to make a group of 30 students miserable 5 times a day, right? Yeah. So that's another misconception. Another big misconception, I have people coming to me. I had a call with a guy a while ago. He said, yeah, so I've been offered a publishing deal. It'll cost me $5,000. And I said, look, the people who work with me who go for traditional publishing deals, they get advances from the publishing company. Publishing companies pay you. You don't pay publishing companies. Now, if you're self-publishing, then you do want to pay for services. So you want to buy a publishing package of services like editing and cover design and whatnot. But don't get those two things confused, because the traditional publisher, they own everything because they're paying you. And if you're paying somebody else, you have to be owning everything. So there are all these misconceptions and these kind of tripwires that people trip over along the process, because publishing has changed so dramatically over the it used to be this gatekeeper and you were lucky if they let you in, and now anyone can publish. Yeah. But then pop up these publishers who aren't really publishers, they're not traditional publishers, and then you pay them and then they keep control of your content and you're like, wait a minute, this isn't right. So the publishing industry is undergoing this huge shift. And this is one of the things Author Nation can do, is just like help you sort through these myths and sort through this fiction, and friction. So I could go on forever, right? But let's stop there.
No.
I will get off my soapbox.
You have permission to stay on your soapbox for our entire time together. That's, yeah. I went with a self-publishing option. My first book, I spent a few $1,000s, and I earned $28 and some cents in royalties my first year.
Yeah.
And then I said, what if we did this? What if we did that? And they're like, no, no, no. If you want, it's our book. We need to do this. And oh, it'll be another 15,000 for this and 10,000 for that. And I
Yeah.
was like, so I'm going to do all the work. I'm going to pay you.
Yeah.
And you own my book. I
Yeah. Wrong.
don't understand.
Wrong.
So
Yeah.
I'm a big, big fan of,
Yeah.
for the record, my authors, we tend to go straight to Amazon
Mm-hmm.
as self-published, but, our books are very, very specifically about getting someone a client.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
want to ask you about the goal of your book. What are you in Author Nation? What's the hope of your aspiring authors?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm really sorry that happened to you. It happens to way too many authors that they end up paying people, and then those people they're paying take ownership of their book and then use that as I don't know, is it a bribe, or like they're holding the book hostage and want more money to do more. This is not how publishing should work. So number one, if you're out there listening to this, please hear that. This is not how publishing works. Talk to Jeff, talk to me, get the information
Yeah.
before you make a mistake like that. Yeah, I'm really sorry that happened to you, Jeff. So who comes to Author Nation? So people who are ready to write a living legacy, people who want to write a nonfiction book. Sometimes they're professionals, sometimes they're entrepreneurs, sometimes they're people who have a magnificent story to tell and lessons to teach through that story. So they're writing a memoir. But those are the top people who come into Author Nation and who do well with our system. We don't do fiction. So you want to set your goals that are you building a business, right? Are you reaching as many people as possible? You want to set those goals first. And the goals that work really well are living legacies, building your business, creating more speaking opportunities, things like that. That's generally what works best. There are, more goals that we could talk about. So, come in, set your goals. But those are some of the bigger ones that people want when they come in and talk to me about it.
I love the legacy, that's part of why I love writing. It's, I'm working on, memoirs, and who cares, the greater scheme of things. I'm not going to be, the movie of the week on Netflix, but, I want to leave a legacy for my kids. Here's what I was thinking. And I see it as a great gift for them of, here's my favorite moments as you were growing up. And all of those stories that get lost when a parent passes away. It's we do have that oral tradition. And what I love about publishing today is if you self-publish, it is a very, very cheap option. So
Yeah, it is. And you make a really good point. My mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's when my youngest was almost a newborn. It was around that time. And so, we realized, time was going to get cut short, right? She wasn't going to be spending time with her grandkids. And, she read books out loud. She got a bell and she'd ring the bell when she turned the page. And then she'd send the recordings with these books as gifts. And so these are things we can keep forever, aren't they? Right.
yeah.
And then we also looked through all of her photographs and started looking, I'd show her a photograph, she'd tell me the story, and I'd document it, trying to grab hold of those things. I know this isn't something that you necessarily want to write a book and publish it, but these are personal stories that are really important. And I would encourage people to find ways to capture them now, right, while you can, because that's, you'll find later that you'll be happy you did.
Yeah, I think especially if you know that Alzheimer's is in the future, you want to have that preparation. And I can't help but think it would be a good gift for yourself so that you can remember things, because I know that's very disconcerting for Alzheimer's patients.
Yeah.
But also for the family, because they can remember the way things were. So
yeah. And I could use those stories to tell those stories back to her when she could no longer remember. We could go through pictures and I could say, oh, this is a picture of you with your brother. And, their stories are so powerful.
Yeah.
They're so powerful. And that's the whole reason I do what I do, because I've rewritten my own story. And I'm completely transformed my life because of it. And I have this really strong belief in the power of story. Yeah.
I love that. Now, let's talk about business in particular.
Mm-hmm.
When you're working with a business, what are they hoping to accomplish with a book, and how
Yeah.
do you help them get there?
Yeah. So I have an idea for a book. Now what problem? And a lot of times businesses come to me and they're like, or, entrepreneurs or professionals, I've got this, idea for this book, and where do I start and what do I do? And they really want to jump into writing it. They really want to just like, I should be writing, right? And what I often do, and this is one of the big things I do, is I sit back and I say, okay, well, why are you writing the book? What do you want out of it? How is this going to change your business? How is this going to change your life? And then they stop and like, what? Wait, I thought I should just write. It's like, well, you could write, or you could decide how this is going to transform your life. And then we've got that sorted out. Then we're going to figure out who is the ideal reader and how it's going to transform the ideal reader's life. And once we figured that out, trust me, the content's going to drop into place. It's going to be, you're going to have so much more clarity on what you should be writing about. And so I think that, that beginning of the journey is really, really important, because people who come to me, they're usually worried about, should I go traditional? Should I go self? They're dreaming about, way down the line, and they're missing those big first steps. So it's one of the big things I do. But of course, I lead people all the way through the process. From a fantastic idea to successfully published author, right? But one of the big things I do is I center them at the beginning, so the journey is really clear. And if writing gets challenging, they can go back and look at those goals and say, I remember why I'm here.
And I think that's what I see a lot of times. People feel that they should write a book, but they haven't given any thought to the why of the book, or quite frankly, the audience of the book. So, I'll just write it for everybody. Well, that's not how books work.
Yeah, I get that too. It's for everyone. Everyone should read it. Everyone.
Yeah.
Really? Okay, here's what you need to know. Not everyone is going to read your book. So if you had to pick 5 people, who are they?
Yeah.
And this is such an important piece, because what I've learned is when you're writing to everyone, your language is so general and not engaging, because you're trying to capture everyone. But when you decide, I'm going to write to this one person, let's say I'll pick a previous client, right? Write to this one person. All of a sudden, their writing shifts. They're like their writing becomes engaging. They're putting like love into their book, right? They're putting joy into their book, because they actually see the person they're writing to, and they see the transformation they're after. Yeah. And then they're like, yeah, but I'm writing to one person. Oh, trust me, everyone who picks up this book will feel like that one person. They will feel, oh my God, they're talking to me.
Wow, Melody wrote this just for me.
They get me. Right? So you have to write to like one person. You have to write to one person, because everybody then becomes that one person.
I love that. And I tell my authors, think of it as a very long love letter to one specific person. And if you put the right stories in the right audience, it will resonate with people as they read it. So I'm going to turn into the action and the wins area. What are some quick wins? Somebody listening to this, they're the proverbial, and I use the quotes, they're thinking about writing a book. What are 3 quick wins that you'd recommend to get them from thinking to actually doing?
Yeah. So one of the things that a lot of my authors are surprised about is I say, look, repurpose content. Have you ever written anything? Have you been on a podcast? Have you been a guest? You have a podcast, you have a YouTube channel, do you have a blog, you've written articles, you have content out there. You don't have to start from zero. Repurpose content. That's number 1. Number 2, when my authors get bogged down into I can't, I usually remind them it's not your skill set, it's your mindset. If you have the right mindset, then you can learn the skill set. So a lot of what I do is keeping people in the mindset of I can do this. And then when they're in that, I can do this, I give them the skills, because once you say I can do this, I can easily pass off all the skills you need to do it. And the third thing, and I say this to all my clients, is be a producer, not a consumer. Be a producer, not a consumer. And this is a really important piece. And I know sometimes people, they struggle with this. They're like, oh, I have to do all this writing, and it's a content world, and I'm supposed to have a podcast and this and that. And it's like, good. Take 1 hour off of your consumption a day. Just take 1 hour. If people watch something like 4 hours of TV, they're like looking at their screens another 2 hours a day, just like watching YouTube, and they're, take away, if you're consuming 4 hours a day because you're exhausted at the end, take 1 hour away and start producing. Make that producing. That's what I would say. Be a producer, not a consumer. It's something I tell my kids all the time too. Look, you want to win at life, be a producer, not a consumer. Consumers spend money, producers make money.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
for anybody watching, rewind that, think about it, because and there's an irony, because we're producing while you're consuming, but we want you to become the producer, so we do it with love. Now,
Yes.
are there any friction points when somebody comes to you and they say, Melody, I'd love to write a book, but
Yeah.
what advice do you give them, or how do you help them get over those, again, mindset issues?
Yeah. A lot of what I hear, I'll give you what I'd say the top three. One is, I don't have time. I don't have time. And I say, do you have time to market your business? Like, do you have clients? So if you have time to market your business, writing content is part of marketing your business. So you have content, we can repurpose content. Let's look at what you have. That's one thing. So I don't have time. I've had clients who have run workshops and recorded them and transcribed them and turned that into content. So, what are you already doing to produce content that you can use to write a book? Right. That's something I work really hard with my clients. The next thing is the writer's block, right? That blank page. And there they are staring at that blank page, and the blank page starts whispering things to them, and they're not sweet nothings, right? They're not whispering sweet nothings. It's that voice of that grade 9 teacher, right?
Yep.
And I have a lot of tools to help people with writer's block. I do a lot of like breaking down barriers, breaking down obstacles for writer's block. A funny one, kind of, because I like to be silly. One of the like kind of fun ones, sometimes I have people who are quite academic, and I said, look, you got to start writing with crayons, because you are taking yourself way too seriously. Get a big sheet of paper. Yep. And get a set of crayons and start writing with crayons. And then let's see if you can take yourself seriously then. Because a lot of times writer's block is about taking yourself too seriously. Yep. So finding fun and creative ways to get out of it is a good idea. And the other is fear of failure. Like, so many authors tell me, like, what if my book's not good enough? What if nobody reads it? And what if nobody likes it? It's like, look, so you've been doing this for 20, 30 years, and now you're telling me you're not good enough? What? Right? There's something permanent about putting the words on paper and publishing them, right? There's something so permanent about that strikes fear in the hearts of people who have been experts for 20 years.
Yeah.
So that's something I do. I really help people overcome failure. And it's one of the things I like about the community. It's, when you're writing in community, you're in a safe space. You can start putting those words out and letting people see them, and not worry about people judging it, because everyone's in the same boat, right? So I'd say those are the three big friction points.
I love those. And by the way, one of my favorite things you mentioned was, if somebody's done a presentation and they've prepared it, I tell them, go get that thing transcribed, record it, transcribe it. Yeah. There's your first book. And they're like, oh my God, I got to do this and that. It's like, no, that is your first book. Like, it should be fun. It should be easy.
Yeah. Download that, use the visuals, make a PDF, give it as a gift on your email, and you've just created content. It's so smart, Jeff.
I discovered that by accident. I had a presentation, and it got canceled, and they said, well, would you mind doing some notes for us? And so I literally recorded it, and I was watching cartoons with my kids. And while I was absentmindedly formatting it, I just took, the title of the slide deck, and I took the slides, and I was like, oh my God, I have a book. And then I thought, oh, this was dumb luck. So I did it with another presentation, and I was like, oh my God, there's another book. So if
Mini
you've got a
books,
presentation, use it. All right.
repurpose content.
Yeah, I love that. Now, tell me a story about somebody that you worked with. So, sort
Sure.
of, you don't need to name names, but what does the journey feel like for somebody who works with Melody?
So people come in at any point in the process. So this particular client, she came in with a book, probably, 60, 75% done. She wanted to go traditional publishing route, and she wanted to figure out how to get a traditional publisher, to pay her and take her book. And so what we did was we actually reorganized the book, because I do developmental editing. She wasn't even sure about the order, so we actually reorganized the book. We added some amazing features to the book, because she had just written words, but there are features like insets, and there's lots of things you can do to a book. We reorganized it. We finished off the last little bit, just a really rough draft. We did one kind of good edit on it, and then we wrote a pitch to a publishing house, sent that off, and they took her book, and they gave her an advance, which is what publishers do. They give you an advance. And then so it was a really great, because she was a doctor, she had a medical clinic, and she didn't want to be that full-time author this is why she went traditional. There's some good reasons to go traditional publishing. There's some good reasons to go self. For her, she was already a doctor. She was already running a medical clinic. She didn't want to become this full-time author. So she really wanted a traditional publisher who could get her the speaking gigs, who could get her onto the podcast, who could get her into the media. And that's what they did. And so she wasn't looking to win on the sale of the book. She was looking to promote who she was as a doctor. She was looking to promote her clinic. And so the publisher we found, it was a beautiful match. They did all of the promotion. They made money on the book sales. And she went and did all the speaking gigs and what she needed to do. And she, her clinic has a bigger name in North America, which she takes clients all through North America. And so, it made a big deal to her business. She grew her business that way. So it's just one story. And that's a traditional publishing story, but you can do something similar for self. It's a thing. You got to know whether you want to go self or traditional based on your goals, right?
Yeah. Goals are everything.
Goals,
all right.
yeah.
Well, we're almost out of time, unfortunately, but what is the best way for people to get in touch with you if they want to connect after watching you and I chatting?
Well, I say join the community, right? AuthorNation.community. Join us. We have a question of the week. We have events for everyone. So just join us and start talking, introduce yourself, come to some of our events, and just see what we do, and reach out to me. Once you join, there's also, you can book a 30-minute call with me and get to know you, what your book's about and what's going on in your life. I'd love to do that. So AuthorNation.community is the link.
I love it. And there is a lot of misinformation out there. So find a source like Melody to set you straight. Melody, is there anything I haven't asked you that you'd like to share with people watching this today?
So you've asked me some amazing questions. Thank you. It was really, really good. But I'll tell you a little story. Just, we're talking about that grade 9 English teacher, and the power of story. So if you're writing a memoir, or if you are trying to get a project done, a book or whatever it is, and that fear comes up because of some grade 9 teacher or whatever it is, someone in your past who you really should leave in your past is coming up. I'll tell you this story. So I didn't own my own story growing up. Most of us do not own our own story growing up. In fact, most of us are told who we are. We're told who the character is. We're told who we are, and we're told what our story is. And that often doesn't serve us, right? We're told things that don't serve us. So I rewrote my story, and I recentered myself in the story. And so this is just to give an example. As a teenager, I acted out a lot. I was that rebel kid who didn't listen, who acted like they didn't care, who was like just, that awful kid who was she even going to graduate high school? Like, was she ever, really like dead in a ditch at 21, right? I was that kid. And my father would go into school and go, I'm trying, he'd be this like, this like, I'm trying and she doesn't listen. And, can you get through to her? And, and the truth was, back at home, it was all addiction and violence. That was my home life. But of course, my father was this master manipulator who told this other story about me. And so as I moved into adulthood, I took this story with me. And I thought, I'll never do anything. I'd run a business, never, right? Get a university degree, never. I'm worthless, right? I'm worth nothing. This is my story. And when I learned that I could rewrite my own story, and I could say, look, that angry kid was angry for a good reason. And if I was acting out and I was acting like I didn't care, it was because the person closest to me was hurting me. And of course I'm going to protect myself. That's what, when I see kids on the street, I look at them and I'm go, kid, you're protecting yourself from something, right? And so if, and you don't have to have as tragic a story as mine, but if you have a grade 9 teacher, or you've had a spouse or a parent or anyone who's tried to tell you who you are, to try to tell you who the main character of your story is, and who's tried to tell you what the story is, it is time for you to rewrite that story and say, put myself in and take responsibility. I take full responsibility for me being a rotten teenager, full responsibility. And I went on to learn better skills, better social skills, better communication skills. But it was in recentering myself as the hero of the story that gave me permission to do that. So whatever project you're working on, whether it's your internal life or whether it's your work and you're stuck, remember that you can recenter yourself in your story, create a new story, make you the hero, and you can succeed. So I just want to end with that. Hopefully that helps someone.
I love that. And believe it or not, it helped me because I now know who I need to connect you with. So I just want to thank you for being a guest on the show today, Melody. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jeff.